and whippoorwill call. And evening is night, I hurry to my blue heaven.
G'day and welcome to another episode of My Blue Heaven. And round 18 done and dusted, only 5 more games remaining in 2019. And who would have thought, if you think back 6 weeks ago, that we would have had 4 wins under our interim coach, David Teague. You probably would have thought you were crazy. But it's been a roller coaster of a ride the last 6 weeks, but it's been absolutely fantastic. If you're not a happy blue bagger at the moment, or not so much happy, but if you're not a positive blue bagger at the moment, you can see just a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel, then there must be something seriously wrong with you. What I want to do today, I want to make it a pretty quick episode. I want to talk about 10 really quick points regarding the game on the weekend and move through a couple of other issues that I thought about over the last 48 hours since we stitched up the Suns at Marvel Stadium. So for a second week running, guys, I reckon it was a pretty honest and, what would I call it? I wouldn't call it a mature display by the boys. I don't think we are a mature team just yet, but I thought it was a very workman-like performance. Second week running, we've been able to do that. We obviously did it against the Swannies, led all the way, and we did it once again against the 18th place Gold Coast Suns, who I thought brought great intensity for a team that had been belted by consecutive 90-plus point defeats at the hands of both the Crows and Essendon on their own dunghill. I thought they came and really took it up to us, and I thought we had to respond. I thought we did that pretty well throughout. We were challenged in the third quarter, and then we were challenged in the last quarter, and the boys certainly stood up. The Suns laid 92 tackles. That's how ferocious they were around the ball, and I thought that we were able to respond to that physicality, and I thought it was a really, really good display. I know a few people were a little bit disappointed that the margin of 24 points couldn't have been a little bit more, but I was really happy with the way our players went about it for 4 quarters. That brings me on to my next point in regards to, I thought this game was an absolute perfect preparation for our game against the Adelaide Crows this week at the MCG. And what a big game this is. There's a lot riding on this game. Obviously the draft pick swaps with the Adelaide Crows at the back end of last year in regards to the Liam Stocker swap and a swap of first round draft picks. And, we want to bridge that gap. We are now 16th on the ladder, and we want to bridge that gap as much as we can before the end of the year. And we really need to stitch the Adelaide Crows up this weekend at the MCG. So I thought that really tough game against the Sun was a great way to go into this game. I think the last thing we really wanted to do was have this sort of false 80-point win against the Suns, similar to what the Crows had the week before last when they won by 95 points against the Suns and thought they were fucking world beaters. They had like 65 inside 50s. They had 13 players who had more than 20 disposals on that game. Little Eddie Betts kicked his 6 goals, and then they come out against the Bombers last Friday night, and when it got really tough and really hard, they couldn't dig deep against the Bombers. So I reckon our preparation's a lot better than theirs, and I just think theirs was soft and we're a little bit more hardened. And I think our last 2 weeks against Sydney, we really had to fight, and again on the weekend will hold us in really good stead against Adelaide this weekend. Say hello to Boone. This is a little cat that my wife has fostered, so I hope he doesn't get in the way. So get down there, little thing. All right, my next point. Liam Jones, 19 possessions, 11 marks, 5 of which were contested, and disposal efficiency at 85%. What a game. I think this game, if we talk about, I know it's a team game, but we like to sort of focus on individuals when they have absolutely outstanding games, will rival or should rival Patrick Cripps' game against Brisbane as the best individual performance of one of our players in 2019. In fact, it was just as good as Cripps' performance. He was absolutely outstanding. And better, though, it was a timely reminder, because he had that shocker a couple of weeks ago back against Melbourne. It was just a timely reminder of how good this bloke can be and will continue to be over the next 3 years. I just thought his courage, his marking ability, and his composure as well was just first rate. And it's disappointing he missed so much football this year, because he was a shoo-in for a key defender role in the All-Australian side. So fingers up. And I reckon that thumbs up. And I reckon that combination of Jacob Wiedering and Liam Jones this year, when the two boys have played together down back, has to be probably the biggest positive to come out of 2009. I thought Wiedering again was outstanding on the weekend. He's starting to show some real maturity. Speaking of Patrick Cripps, he wasn't at his best on the weekend. I don't reckon he's really been at his best other than the Brisbane game since, I reckon, I don't know, about round 9 or 10, which is okay. I think, we didn't so much miss his inside dominance on the weekend. And we got the job done without Cripper having a blinder. And I think that's a real positive. I really do. And, we didn't have him against Fremantle and we were still able to get the points away. And this weekend, he didn't have a big influence. And what I did notice when the Suns were challenging in that last quarter and we were able to kick a couple of quick goals, and our only 2 goals of that last quarter were when Cripps was actually off the ground getting his ankles strapped. Now, I'm not saying for any minute that we don't need Patrick Cripps, because we do. We need him to be playing good football. But from a maturity point of view, and for our team to move forward, my biggest concern was that where there was too much of a reliance on the Messiah, Patrick Cripps, we're now getting a more even contribution from a number of players. And if we look at those 2 goals that we did kick in that last quarter, which really sealed it for us, the first one to Kennedy was a result of some great work by Jack Silvani, Zach Fisher, Setterfield. The 3 of those plus Kennedy, all young players under 22 years of age, really stepping up in an important moment. And then obviously the Harry McKay goal about a minute later, another young player. So massive positive, not so much effect with Cripps not playing, but we don't want to be a one-man band, don't we? And I think as we move forward, we just need to have a better contribution from all of our players. And I thought over the last 2 weeks we've seen that. So that's excellent. I reckon Cripps' role's changed a little bit as well. He seems to be playing a little bit more of an outside game. And I thought, 18 disposals on the weekend? He looked really quick, didn't he, at times? So maybe his role has changed just a little bit as well. Next point I want to make is about, not so much a negative, but just a little bit of a concern about Matty Kreuzer. I said recently that I believe Matty Kreuzer is not necessarily our best player, but arguably our most important player. And I was over the moon when Big Cruz recently committed to the club for another year. I just think it is fantastic. But in saying this, I'm a little bit worried about the big guy's health and well-being. He's been just banged about so much, and his body just seems to be, I don't know, just whether he can have a full season of football next year is very questionable. I'm just seeing signs at the moment that he looks really sore. He looked banged up on the weekend. I thought Witts, had the better of him in the aerial contests and around the ground. I thought it was a really quiet display by Kreuzer. I'm not saying he wasn't, he wasn't making any impact. He laid a big bruising tackle there in the game, but I just thought he looked tired. He looked tired and he looked sore, and it's been a big last 6 weeks for Kreuzer since Teague took over, and I reckon it's just starting to take its toll on probably for the first time I've seen over the last couple of weeks. And don't be surprised if he gets a rest pretty shortly, because he's going to cop it this week against young Riley O'Brien, who's all arms and legs. He's a sort of young buck. He's hard at the contest, and he's going to be smashing into Big Cruz all afternoon. So I'm just a little bit worried at the moment. We really need Big Tom DeConning to come on over the next 12 months, and fingers crossed he's able to do that, because I just don't know how much longer Cruz he's got, and whether he can play a full season next year, I'm not quite sure. Point number 6, and a real positive one, and this one I think is something which I'm pretty happy about. At the mid-season bye, I had both Matthew Kennedy, Darcy Lang right in the firing line, almost to the point that I didn't think both the boys probably deserved a contract for next year the way they were tracking, but full credit to both of them. They've responded pretty well since the bye, particularly Matthew Kennedy. But in saying that, neither are safe just yet. But the signs that both could have an important part to play for us moving forward are a hell of a lot more positive than that were 6 weeks ago. So, look, and admittedly, I must admit that both have had their injury concerns since they arrived at the club, so that plays some sort of part in why they haven't been able to get on the park on a consistent basis. To me, Matthew Kennedy is fascinating. I mean, brought to the club as an inside mid to help Patrick Cripps, he now looms as this sort of dangerous hybrid forward with those fucking powerful legs, those big tree trunk thighs. He's a specimen, isn't he? In his game on the weekend, I wouldn't call them, they weren't great goals, but he's got a sense around the big sticks, and he's a good overhead. He can hit up hard at the footy, and he's a beautiful kick as well. So they were really good signs. But I reckon down the track we'd probably like to see him move back into the midfield, because I don't know how sustainable that sort of forward role is for him moving forward. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but we'll just have to see on that. As far as Darcy Lang goes, here's another one. I mean, he's had multiple games now under his belt, and he's showing gradual performance each week. And I think the last 5 weeks is going to be huge for both of those boys. So fingers crossed they can finish off the season very well. Point number 7, Sam Petreski-Seaton across half-back. Wow, what a fucking work of art that has been by David T. But in saying that, he was playing a little bit behind the ball earlier on in the year, not so much as a half-back flanker, but just drifting backward of centre and filling in a hole at certain stage. So he has showed even under Brendan Bolton that he could do it. But I just think it's been a masterstroke. His ball use, what he's got that other players haven't got is he's clean below his knees, and he's got this innate ability to find a little bit of extra time that other players don't have, which makes his decision making a lot more precise. And his kicking is beautiful. I know he lacks a little bit of penetration in his kicking, but what I've noticed is he's more inclined now to kick up on the 45 and open up the play. I think it's just been marvellous to see SBS down there. And he's also learning pretty quickly how to defend as well. And he's always been a very hard player and a particularly good tackler as well. Point number 8, Josh Deluca. I mean, we've set some nice feel-good moments this year. Kicking 100 points for the first time since Federation is one that comes to mind. There was the players, just jumping all over Murph and swamping him when he kicked that goal against the Dockers. That was fantastic. But I think my favourite moments, hopefully we have more over the next 5 weeks, was when the players just flocked on Josh Deluca after he kicked his first goal in his debut game. It was just a beautiful moment. The hairs on the back of the neck stood up. I just loved it. Look, if I'm going to be honest, personally, I don't think he has the skill set, what I've seen in the VFL and also what I've seen in the first game. He played the one game, so give him a chance to forge a career. It's questionable whether he'll have a contract next year, but I love his enthusiasm, I love his story, and I love his aggression as well. And maybe these aspects will hold him in good stead moving forward. But here's an idea. If he's going to get a game this weekend, chuck him on fucking Rory Laird and let the little pocket rocket in Josh Deluca terrorise the fuck out of Rory Laird, who loves to get around the back and accumulate a lot of possessions for the Adelaide Crows. Now, point number 9, speaking of rookies, and a bloke whose journey representing our club has been a difficult one, is a guy who wears the number 40, Michael Gibbons. Now, let this sink in for just a second, okay? Gibbons has played every game this season, and he's acquitted himself really well. And in a year which has thrown up so many challenges, not just for him in the position he's at to play, but as a club as a whole, to come into your first season in the AFL, to be at a club, where we lose our coach midway through the year, a coach that had faith in him, and he's a big deal. And I think each week he's just shown gradual improvement to the point now where he's becoming a pretty important player of our 22. This is what I propose. I know for a fact, he's skillful. We know he's skillful. He's smart, and he's got a massive work rate, and he appears to be really popular amongst the playing group, which are really, really good attributes to have for a footballer. I'm led to believe that the position he is as a rookie, that the club are in a position to sign him and commit to him before the end of this year. And I'd love them to do that over the coming weeks. 2-year contract would be great. A great reward for effort for Gibbons, and I reckon it will give us a great boost over the final weeks of this season. I reckon it give Michael Gibbons a great boost as well. So I hope that does happen. I want to finish off, my last point I want to finish off is with Harry McKay. Now I heard a lot of people were upset about his game on the weekend, and there were calls to have him dropped, and he stuffed his groins and stuff. Maybe he's a little bit sore. He did miss a few weeks. But I reckon his last 2 weeks have been really good. Now, maybe I'm blind and not seeing it like a lot of you are seeing it, but I look at his performance on the weekend, 14 disposals, 10 marks, 4 inside 50s and 4 tackles. I know he had to kick 2 goals too and kick poorly. I reckon his work rate is fantastic for a guy who's over 200 centimetres. His work rate is brilliant. And the week before against the Swans, it was the same. 12 possessions, 9 marks, 5 of those marks inside 50s and 3 tackles, also 4 scoring shots, 1 goal, 3. The only area of his game that needs to be improving is his set shot for goals, which has deserted him at the moment. It's a confidence thing, and his role has changed. He's no longer being relied on to take contested marks. A lot of his marks are up on the lead, which I think is fantastic in the way we want to play, and he's prepared to push up and work really hard. Get off his back, for fuck's sake. He is going okay. I mean, if you look at someone like Josh Shackey, who was picked number 2 in the same draft, I mean, Harry McKay at pick 10 is streets ahead. Okay, I reckon he's just below Eric Hipwood at the moment. He was taken a little bit after as an academy player with the Brisbane Lions. But as a pick 10, as a key position player, he is tracking along beautifully. I know everyone is really impatient to Harry to have a big breakout game, but he's taking on a big load at the moment. There's no McGovern, there's no Charlie Curnow. You've got Levi Casbolt, playing half and half in the ruck and up forward. So he's doing a lot of the hard work and hard grunt work down by himself. And I think his last 2 weeks after he came back from injury, I thought his performances before that were down, but I think he's showing some really good signs, particularly his work ethic. We look forward to the Crows this weekend. Get there, Blue Baggers, get there. Let's get 60,000 people there, okay, to the MCG on Saturday, or at least 50,000. Pack it out. Cheer on the boys, because I think this is a really important game for us, obviously for a number of reasons against the Crows, and just keep our season rolling. How good is it? How good is it to be in a position where we know there's something to play for? Just think about 12 months ago at this exact time, how you were feeling. The fact that you weren't looking forward to any games, and I don't reckon our players were looking forward to finishing off the season. So if you like these videos, please subscribe, and I'll see you again on My Blue Heaven shortly. Thanks to the boys from League Tees as well for this great t-shirt.